Yo, what is up guys, Grim here, and in today's video we're going to be reviewing all the crafts that were just revealed right before the league start of Harvest. So as the league probably comes out and we learn more, this may change a little bit, but I think it's pretty useful information to have at league start. So I'll go on record and say I'm not the biggest crafter. I don't sit in my hideout with a stack of a few thousand alterations or anything. I'm more of a mapper. I like to get the drops and stuff like that, but that's not holding me back from really getting into this league. So there's a number of crafts that really stand out to players who aren't too on the craft heavy side, so they're not pulling out the chance calculator for their influenced item and stuff like that. We'll be going into those, and I'm going to talk about how I'm going to utilize all the actual crafting modifiers from these plants on something which isn't too insane and hard to understand. So let's kick off with the spreadsheet. Of course, there had to be a spreadsheet before we kick the league off. So I've taken all of the seeds here, and they've got their name there on the left, as well as their tier and their color. And then I've also done like a basic description of what they do on the right, and I've ranked them with a bit of a legend there. So to kick it off, we have in red, crafting stuff. So basically, like, all of the crafting modifiers in this league follow a pretty similar pattern. Let's use this one, this caster modifier one, as an example. So you can see here that there's all kinds of different crafting effects. There's like stuff like an Exalt Slam for caster mods. There's like an Annul for caster mods. You know, there's basically everything for caster mods. And this is a theme. So there's like a caster mod seed. There's a physical mods like seed, there's a chaos seed, you know, the lightning seed, and everything seed. There's a seed for all the kind of crafts that you'd want to do. Now, as a player who doesn't really craft, a lot of this stuff is kind of like, well, what would I do with that? I'm going to harvest these seeds and get a bunch of these options, and I wouldn't even know what to do with them. Like, where am I going to put all this stuff? So I was trying to think like, okay, how can I best use these? Because maybe at some point I sell a ton of these, but if I want to get tier 2 and tier 3 seeds, I'm going to have to kill a lot of tier 1 seed monsters. So I'm going to be planting pretty much every tier 1 seed anyway, and it doesn't feel too good to just waste these. So there's two options. Either I can figure out how to use these crafts, or I can just put everything in the storage tanks in terms of the life force. And if you guys are curious about the mechanics and min-maxing that, I do have a video I just put out on my league start plans on making the most currency out of this as possible. So you have two options there, which I outlined, and you kind of have to go with one or the other, or you're going to be giving up a lot of potential currency. So the first option that I came up with, and the one I'm probably going to go with, is jewel crafting. So in Path of Exile, jewels are things that you sock into the tree. Most builds use like anywhere between like 1 to 2, all the way up to like 5, 6, 7 of them, maybe even more sometimes, whether they're normal jewels, cluster jewels, abyss jewels, etc. There's tons of different jewels, and there's basically a jewel for every build, and every build needs multiple of these. Now, with so many crafting options, you have the ability to pretty much make any jewel possible, I would say, with these, and you've probably got a pretty good chance at making very powerful ones at that. I'm pretty familiar with crafting bow elemental jewels, and I know they sell for about 2 or 3 exalts for a pretty good one, because I buy them at that price. So if I can craft them, there's no reason I can't craft stuff like ED Contagion, like Chaos Damage jewels, you know, like new slam jewels, caster jewels, minion jewels. All these things will sell incredibly well, and I plan on probably doing a video about the jewels that I'm crafting, so you guys can kind of like cherry pick all of my findings on that. But if you're not a big crafter and you just want something nice and easy where you can bring a bunch of bases in once you finish your garden farming session and actually use these things, I would recommend jewel crafting, focusing on just like a few archetypes and really getting the most out of it. So like the caster ones, maybe you have a jewel which you're trying to make for casters, and if you get something good, you can sell it for a few exalts. That would be my advice. So that is part 1 of the spreadsheet, and covers most of the red stuff like speed, like cold damage defense, all that kind of stuff like that. I'm going to just use it on jewels. Of course, you can use it on stuff like rings, amulets, probably boots is another good one. If you get really into crafting, it's probably like Stygian vices and stuff like that, but I'm just not into that stuff, so I'm going to stick with jewels. That is my solution to the crafting portion of this league. So what else do we have though apart from that? We have a lot of other really exciting things here, which we could probably build whole strategies around and make a lot of currency off. So the first one here is the Wild Thornwolf Seed, a tier 1 seed at that, which allows you the ability to recolor the sockets of items. So all of the other options here, they're not too interesting. They let you kind of like recolor stuff like with the Varici bench, like that used to be the old functionality, but with the recoloring bench, the crafting bench. But the really interesting one here is reforge the color of a non-white socket on an item. So this has a massive amount of like applications just everywhere in the game. There's all kinds of items which give bonuses when they have white sockets. Probably the main one that people think of is the Pariah. This is a magic find ring, and it's the one ring with the highest quantity in the whole game. Most magic finders probably rock 2 of these, and they generally demand a pretty steep price. That may not be the case now that I'm outlining this this fact, and a lot of people are probably going to buy and swap Pariahs over to white sockets and flip them early, but maybe there's a little bit of money to be made there. I know I'm definitely going to be checking it out in day 1 or 2 and trying to make a bit of money off flipping Pariahs into white sockets. The other thing though is, of course, armor. The way this is worded says reforge the color of a non-white socket on an item, turning it white. This basically means you can continually do this until any item has maximum white sockets, essentially turning it into tabula rasa. So you can do this on items which are notoriously hard to color. Perhaps stuff like chevrons and stuff like that is also pretty good. But there are some items, I think, that are really, really like hard to color correctly. I remember back in the day it was Vol's Protector was pretty hard, but that one's no longer relevant. But basically target items which are super hard to color. Maybe some popular items like Shavs is also a good target. Maybe look for some other items like the Pariah, and you can probably get a lot of currency out of this this craft. Yeah. So pretty good in my opinion, and this is definitely going to be one that you want to use and potentially even buy if there is enough money in flipping some of these uniques over to white sockets. So pretty cool. There is also the option to split it using a beast. So if you get like a 6-link astral plate with 6 white sockets and you like 28% quality in it, you know, the works, and then you split it with a splitting beast from bestiary, maybe you can make some profit there as well. Lots of options just from this one tier 1 seed. Remember, this is tier 1. That's really insane. So pretty cool indeed. So next up, we have the currency crafting with improved chances. So there's a few of these currency ones which basically offer you an exchange deal, letting you swap one currency for another. Some of these are better than others. Oh, sorry, this is actually a different one than that. This is actually a very powerful one. This is the one which essentially allows you to modify an item X times. It looks like mainly 10 times. So you have, of course, number of sockets 10 times. So it's basically 10 jewelers. That's not that great. You do have also 10 times for links, using the greatest number of links. So this is 10 fusings. And then you also have an interesting one down here, which is upgrade a normal item to a random rarity 10 times using the outcome with the highest rarity. This is basically scour chancing 10 times. So these are all incredibly powerful options with a few others sprinkled in here, but we won't talk too much about them. We'll be here all day. So 3 of the 7 options here are quite powerful indeed. And I'll go into why. Number 1, this is a tier 1 seed. In the trailer, they showed someone dropping 9 tier 1 seeds from a mid-tier map from 1 seed cache. Now that is insane. There's only 15 tier 1 seeds on the loot table. So the chances that you get one of these is pretty high. 1 per map, potentially 10 fusings per map, per 1 map. If you get one of these, that's pretty crazy. Indeed, that's nuts. So let's get into the applications. First of all, these are super common. You're going to get a lot of these. Second of all, you could bulk buy these and they're super easy to cultivate. And third of all, there's like multiple options here. So let's go with the scour chancing first. So in PoE, this is one of the most broken mechanics in the game. Scour chancing essentially lets you turn any base into the unique version. If you do it enough times, it's essentially like using the trash to treasure prophecy, which a lot of people don't know, but is one of the most lucrative things you can use in the game when used correctly. And the correct way to use that prophecy is to buy a 6th linked base of a very powerful item. Think like an occultist vestment, and then scour chance that into a chevrons. And because it was 6 linked already, and the 6 linked occultist vestment is generally fairly cheap, by turning it into a 6 linked shavs, it becomes a lot more expensive. So you can get a massive premium from doing stuff like that. Another one that comes to mind is also Impulsor and stuff like that. So there's definitely massive opportunity here. You can also combine it with the white socket thing. Like, so you could get a 6-link Occultist Vestment, 6 white sockets, split it with a beast, and then scour chance it into like a 6-link, 6-socket, 6 white socket chavs, and keep doing that with the split beast. So there's all sorts of things you can do here. Again, a tier 1 seed. That's just one of the options. So the other option here is the fusings. So again, it's just 10 fusings pretty much every time you get this option, which is just incredibly broken in my opinion. That's a lot of currency to get from 1 seed, meaning this seed will always be worth something, and whenever you get it, you can just throw in a 6-socket item that you think you'll make money off 6-linking, and you're pretty much good to go. So definitely pretty cool. The last one here, not too insane. I don't even know if I would use this. I might turn this into Life Force if I get this this outcome, but it's at worst 2 fusings. Obviously, that's far worse than the 10 fusings down here. Of course, we also do have flask quality as well as gem quality. So this is essentially at max 10 GCPs, and on the lower side, obviously you can get a few less GCPs, so it's not bad. You'd use that as well. Just use it on your gems in your inventory that you maybe have. And then flasks you're probably never going to really use. So yeah, that's what I would highlight there. Definitely a very, very good option indeed. So next up we have socket number on the Vivid Leech grain. I believe I highlighted this one. Oh, it's not a grain, it's a seed anymore. Yeah, so this is just the sockets. You can potentially make a tiny little bit of money by grabbing uniques, which are like high in demand, and grabbing them with no sockets and 6-socketing them. That is something you can do if you're in real need of a currency and you want to make use of this. Not sure how good this will be, because obviously tier 1 seeds are very common and you will net a bit of money from this, so it might be worth just having some uniques to use this on and then selling them. This also does allow you to have bases though to use and then fuse with up on one of the other ones that we mentioned earlier. So maybe you just buy a bunch of uniques and then you use this to 6-socket them, you use the other one to 6-link them, and there's also another fusing one coming up. So it might just be kind of convenient to have, and make it so that you don't have to use Jeweler's Orbs 6-socketing things that you want to fuse using this mechanic. So next up we have obviously the 6-link crafting as well. Which is basically going to just give you a shot at a 6-link. This is basically the only one you'd use. I'd probably convert the rest into Life Force. Perhaps you use the 5-link one. Maybe that's fine, depending on the item that you're trying to do. You can make a little bit of currency flipping items from unlinked to 5-link, especially early on. So next up we have Unique Item Transformation. So this one's listed in yellow. So this one is basically going to be Headhunter or Bust. So the actual garden itself in maps inherits map modifiers. So this will inherit Nemesis. Now I'm not sure if this necessarily even needs to inherit Nemesis, because if it operates the same way as the Bestiary, it should just have all uniques available to it, so you may not even need to put Nemesis on your map to make use of this. But this will need to be tested. I'm sure it'll be discovered quite early on whether you can get league specific uniques from this. But yeah, you're generally going to be putting in a belt pretty much every time. For these two options, you'll probably target something like Impulsor for the armor. I don't think there's really any powerful weapons that you can really go for off the top of my head. And then of course the unique jewel you could get in Inspired Learning, or something like a Lionized Fall early would be nice as well. So I think this one's always worth using in my opinion, as long as you get something reasonably good, like the belt or something like that to try. And then it's also, again, a tier 1 seed. Tier 1 seeds are very, very common. You're going to be like doing hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these. So getting some use out of this, you could just get lucky and get yourself a Headhunter or a mid-tier unique or something along those lines. So definitely worth using, and I would definitely recommend not turning that into the Life Force and using it. So next up we have the Snap Hound seed here, which is the currency item exchange, which we were speaking about earlier but got wrong. Snap Hound grain. So this is basically just going to be a straight up currency swap. I don't think there's anything too interesting about this. There's a few good ones that you'll do and there's a few bad ones that you won't do. Depending on how easy it is to access the stash in the garden, you may do stuff like this, transmutes for alks. Not sure though that that'll be worth it later on, but you'll definitely trade 3 chaos for a divine orb pretty much at all times. And you will probably do the sexton exchange as well, because that's pretty good. And of course, you will swap for Orbs of Annulment. That is an insane trade. Anyone would take that. So definitely worth doing this, but keep in mind it is a tier 2 seed, so it will be far less common than the tier 1 seeds, most likely. So the next one is the Homunculus seed, which should be a pretty good one. This is going to swap over fossils into a different type of fossil. So basically this is actually going to be quite insane. I think focusing on oils, delirium orbs and stuff like that, obviously just always have a stack of probably like the lowest tier one. So for delirium orbs, you'll probably want something like prophecy. For fossils, you'll probably want like something like frigid, and then you have a chance of potentially getting, you know, like the Val fossil, or, you know, currency delirium orbs. This could be a massive amount of money from this. All of the outcomes on this are good except essence. So if you get this, whack it in the ground straight away and grow it, and Bob's your uncle. You should be able to get something pretty good out of it. Most likely you will just make money every time. If you're taking the lowest value one and turning it into anything else, generally you will get a gain, with a big gain as a potential as well. Like imagine turning 10 clear oils into 10 gold oils. That's actually a possibility, which could be pretty cool indeed. So let's skip over to the next one here. We're going to talk about sacrificing a Zana, 2 Zana pretty much. Sorry. So this one, I do want to quickly talk about because infused map modifiers aren't in the game currently. We don't know what that is, but I'm going to make a guess here and say that it is basically a one-time use free charge of the league mechanic. And I don't believe that they'll allow these to stack, because I didn't see any additional UI when they revealed the Zana modifiers, but they may stack. But if they don't stack, it is a little bit annoying, and it is going to force you to micromanage a little bit, because you can't just be like, okay, I'm chancing Headhunters Nemesis time and burn all your Nemesis infusions. You will have to use it as you get it. So I guess that's really going to impact how good this is. But at worst, you're going to get a few chaos for free, assuming you can get the most out of these league mods. Note though that some of the more powerful ones aren't here. Like I believe Legion is on the map device and isn't here. That's a real shame, because that's the one everyone probably would have wanted off this, because that would have been like over 6 chaos worth of value just from this one seed if you got that. Stuff like Anarchy and Bloodlines aren't too great. But there's no downside in using this if you sacrifice like a tier 1 map. It's worth nothing and you get something. So definitely not too bad there. I would use it indeed. So next up we're going to go into the gem crafting. This introduces a new item, which is pretty interesting. We're going to quickly talk about this one. So as a part of mapping, most people do level gems in their offhand and then eventually flip them over to 20% quality, corrupt them, and go for 2120 gems. So what this essentially allows you to do is either turn those 2020 gems that didn't get to 2120 into gem cutter prisms, at either 50 to 20% rate. So if it's a 50% rate, your 20% gem that you failed and bricked will turn into 10 GCPs, which isn't bad at all, not too bad. But you can also get the opportunity to turn a corrupted gem into a faceted lens. So I'm going to take the guess and say faceted lenses are essentially storage units for gem XP. So it says here that you sacrifice the corrupted gem to gain 50% of the experience and put it into a faceted lens. So essentially, if you got 50% every time, which of course you won't, you're turning 2 bricked gems into a new level 20 gem, which could be quite good. Or you can decide to put that XP onto an awakened gem or something like that. I believe this is a sellable currency as well, so you can definitely now sell gem XP as well. So that is definitely interesting, meaning that this could be potentially good. And of course we have the Hail Mary at the end here, which will be quite rare, I imagine, which is to awaken a level 20 support gem with a 5% chance. But if you don't awaken it, it's destroyed. So pretty much everyone's just going to pick the most expensive awakening gem there is and just go for it, see if they can get it. There's no downside to trying that, apart from wasting a bit of currency on a level 20 gem. But those aren't too expensive in the first place. Of course, the other thing with this is that a lot of high quality and high level corrupted gems just do drop naturally now from like stuff like the Temple of Atzawaddle and all that. So you can also use them here as well. You don't just have to use this to recycle your gems that you're leveling. So pretty cool. Next we might just jump to maybe a few of the more spicy ones here. Let's go to map enchantment. I've listed this one in purple, meaning it's insane to use in my opinion. So we'll quickly jump on that and make our way through. So we've got here pretty much 4 options, but the only one that matters here is the map does not consume sextant charges. So this thing is, it's hard to explain just how insane this modifier is. Some sextant modifiers are so extremely powerful that they can like increase the amount that drops from the map by 10 to like over 10 times, just with one modifier. So getting this and basically preserving it can be worth immense amounts of currency, and it works for all sextant charges on the map. So with the watchstone system in the game, you can preserve sextants indefinitely. You can like hide them away in a section that you're never going to run. So you can always have these overpowered sextants stashed away for when you get maps that have this modifier on them. Additionally, because this modifier is so powerful, and you can use it with stuff like the Monsters Treasure Box mod, you know, with Hunter Traders, with the currency from Nemesis monsters, and Nemesis is on the map device. This is so broken that I wouldn't even be surprised if people started crafting maps, putting this modifier on them, and then actually using fractured fossils on the maps, because that's just that insane. It's completely broken, and I'll be very interested to see how the big farming groups make use of this, because I think it's going to be completely busted. So that is crazy indeed. The next one I want to quickly talk about is the Divination card one, because that one is also quite interesting as a tier 2 seed. So, sacrifice divination cards. There's a lot of really fun ones here, and I think you're going to be able to make an insane amount of money off these if you play it right. So the first one is just change a divination card into a random divination card. That's not bad. It's essentially a stacked deck. You'll get a worthless one, turn it into any other random one. One stacked deck is generally worth anywhere between 2 to 10C, depending on the point of the league. So that's a pretty good outcome by itself. People love stacked decks as well, me included. The next one is insane. Sacrifice up to half of a stack of divination cards to receive between 0 and twice the amount of cards. So you can basically pick your own risk level here. You're either going to get absolutely hosed and get 0, or you're going to get obviously a full stack. On average, you should actually get the exact amount that you put back in, because that's half, right? If it's equally weighted, then it's just going to be in the middle. It's basically a complete gamble. You can choose to do this with the Exalted, like Saint's Treasure, or you could go all the way up to like Doctors, Fiends, or you could even do House of Mirrors. The choice of yours, but this is basically just going to be for highlight reels on YouTube. I don't think that there's any way to make any real currency out of this, because it's just a straight up gamble. Next one though is definitely not a straight up gamble. So sacrifice a stack of divination cards for that many divination cards, so random divination cards. So that is completely broken. There is some seriously massive stacks of divination cards. The one off the top of my head is the one from Dunes, which gives you the bow. I think that's something like 22. So essentially this says sacrifice 22 divination cards worth nothing to get 22 stacked decks. That is completely insane. That is completely broken. As long as it's not weighted, it does say different divination cards. So stacked decks, I think someone did a video on it. I think it was Sir Gog. He opened like thousands of them, and he actually figured out that you do get a pretty good amount of really good cards. So this is actually completely broken, and I think it's going to be really, really fun to use. And if you pick a map which has a really common divination card in a high stack, this will be very convenient for you to use as well. So every time you get this, I would use it. It's always going to be a bit of fun. Just depends on how much you want to risk here in this one. So definitely pretty cool in my opinion. We'll move on to the Scramblers Seed here. This one is a bit of an interesting one. I would not normally pick this stuff out, but I have been talking to a few people who say this is completely broken. And this is basically going to be the crafting one in terms of like kind of general use. So all these things are lucky. You can reroll either the prefixes or suffixes of a rare item with the lucky modifiers. And then you can also divine something with all lucky modifiers, which is basically like a super divine for a tier 2 seed. That seems very powerful. And then you can also slam something with a lucky modifier, which is just insane as well. So this is a lucky exalt, a lucky divine, and then like kind of like lucky chaos orbs mixed with the meta crafting mods from the bench. This is an insane seed. All the outcomes are broken, and this is probably, if I had to pick one seed which is going to be worth a lot probably on the trade websites, this is probably going to be it. You're going to be able to sell these in bulk probably to the crafting guys for massive amounts of currency. So definitely very, 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 very powerful on this one. It's not specific at all. It's very generic, and this is going to be basically like, if you think about bestiary, the spider, this is the spider probably of Harvest, I would imagine. So very strong, unless they change it. So moving on, we will quickly go into the Atlas missions. So essentially this one is just going to be good to use. You can put in a map and get Atlas missions back. I would pretty much always recommend putting in a red map, probably a T11 or something like that, and getting those red master missions. But if you're just farming like Betrayal in low tiers or something like that for pure breach stones, you can also put in white maps. It's just an always good one, no-brainer. We will quickly go into the Thornmoor bulb here real quick, because I think it is pretty good. So yeah, so this one's going to be pretty decent as well. It's essentially going to be synthesis maps and shaper maps. You only have to trade a T14 for this. So it's essentially Zana's shop supercharged. Of course, you can also get fragments, but I'm not sure you would go with that. The only thing that I would really look at here is the red map to create a random map fragment. That's essentially going to give you a shaper fragment, I would assume, or an Uber fragment, Uber Zero fragment. So that could be good early on, but it will definitely fall off towards the end. You can also create a Gilded Scarab by putting in a red map, which could also be quite good. So a lot of the outcomes here are quite strong. It definitely does deserve its place as something you'd want to use. But again, it is tier 3, so we're getting up there on the rarity scale, so it could be a bit tough. So I'm not going to go too much into the quality side of things. There's 2 quality mods that you can get, one for weapons and one for body armor. I think these will be quite powerful for elemental and armor / evasion based bases, but for something like energy shield, you probably do want to maintain that quality, as well as physical weapons are going to want to keep the quality as well. But perhaps getting something like a good elemental bow and slapping the critical strike chance from this one on it, replacing the quality there, could be good. It could also be quite interesting if you can craft quality on these and get like the bench and the betrayal, like get it up to like 40%, and then consume that 40%, wipe the mods, and then craft it with something good with the enchantment on there. That could be particularly broken, but we'll just have to see there. I imagine this will be quite good on uniques. So moving on, we got a purple one here. This one's pretty simple, causes other seeds to offer an additional crafting outcome. So the way I interpret this is, if this is in the radius of one of the harvesters, all the seeds get double the effect. So you get double the options, which is completely broken, especially if you're investing heavily in some of the more expensive seeds. So this one's going to be a pretty big go-to seed, I think, for pretty much everyone. And it's definitely going to be worth quite a bit of money. Wouldn't be surprised if this one goes for an Exalt Plus, as it's just that good if it works the way we think. So again, more currency trading. I believe this one is 10C for an Exalt as the best outcome. And there's also 10 Scours for 10 Annuls, which is quite strong as well. We will quickly go into the enhanced currency, which is the Watcher Bulb here. So this one is also pretty good. We can kind of get some cool stuff like with resonators, but the one I really want to point out here is the Engineer's Orb. So the Infused Engineer's Orb is a new currency. We don't know what it does. It could be as bad as making a Strongbox 20%, but it could also be as insane as making a Strongbox something like 200% quality. We just don't know what it does. This could be completely broken, or it could be very mediocre. It is on a tier 3 plant here, so it could be very, very crazy. Also on here is specific wording on the oils. It says upgrade an oil into a higher tier oil. So you can turn silver into gold, you know, black into silver, I think, that kind of stuff like that. So this could also be very, very good money. With also, like, obviously of note here is upgrading the tier of essence. That's okay. That's the worst one, but maybe you can have some funny stuff here with resonators by flipping a rare fossil into a 4-socket resonator or vice versa. So pretty good there. I will just cover a few more here. We've obviously got the Scarab modification as well as the Offering upgrade. No information on the Offering upgrade, but I guarantee it's going to be broken. And then the Scarabs lets you upgrade into the Winged Scarabs, which is going to be completely off its head. You're going to want to be getting them, and also the option to upgrade and split Scarabs, which is also going to be extremely powerful in my opinion. So we'll round it off here with the last three here. We won't get too much into any others here because obviously it's getting too long anyway. But we've got three mods here which I quickly want to talk about, with the first one being the Emblems, Splinters, and I believe... yes, Fragments. So we're quickly not going to focus on the Pale Court Key because no one really does that. It's just for multi-modding, that's pretty much it. But we will talk about Breachstones. This one is either going to be completely busted or it's going to be kind of mediocre. If this works on pure Breachstones, this is insane. You're going to be able to turn low-tier pure Breachstones like Ash into stuff like Zoth or even Chayula. It's okay on the lower side of things. Turning like a base Breachstone into a higher Breachstone is good. But turning pure Breachstones into higher pure Breachstones is even better. Like pure Ash Breachstones are worth pretty much nothing, but a pure like Zoth, Toll, I think pretty much all other four are insane. So that's going to be a guaranteed money creator. Also of note is the Emblems. If you can turn, like a Val emblem into a Mariketh or like even like a Templar, that is going to be a big increase in value. So this is definitely going to be another one which I'm going to be looking out for and using at all points. So next one we have the Crush Claw. So the specific one I want to point out here is the middle one here. Change a unique bestiary item or item with an aspect into lures of the same beast family. This basically means if you have any rare item with aspect of the cat or anything like that on it, you can smack that into this crafting window and just pretty much, from what I can tell, get a Pharaoh Tiger Alpha straight back out, which is completely insane. I'm sure a lot of people understand how overpowered bestiary farming is, especially in groups. You can multiply that beast capture like up to 6 times, letting you get 6 Pharaohs. So any sort of access to beasts, which is not bestiary specifically, is completely insane. And this is exactly that. You're getting access to whatever beast you want because those items with the aspects on them are widely available. So that's going to make beast farming in the menagerie with multiple people even more powerful than it already was, and it was already extremely powerful. The other one I'll point out here is changing a Harbinger unique or unique piece into a random beachhead map. Most of the cheapest pieces go for like 1C, so it's basically turning 1C into a beachhead map, which has, I believe, the chance to turn into a T16 beachhead as well if the promotional material is still accurate, meaning that could be particularly insane, potentially netting you a few Exalts profit from a Tier 3 seed. Very, very cool indeed. Perandus coins, not too good. I'm not sure anyone really uses Perandus coins unless they get a headhunter anymore. But the chance of finding a headhunter off Kadira is quite rare given he is on Zana now only. So yeah, definitely pretty interesting. The last one we'll talk about here is Atlas Influence. So this one is another crafting one, but it is one that is pretty usable by most people. You do probably want to just grab the jewelry on this one. You can also use armor and weapons. But I'm going to specifically point out jewelry here. So a lot of the high item level 86 jewelry with like stuff like Hunter, Warlord, Shaper, Elder, that is worth quite a lot of money. The base items, like the base vanilla normal 86 like amulet is worth pretty much nothing, but like an influenced one is worth tons. So you can make a lot of money just by randomly influencing this. But I imagine this is one of the things which is going to tank in value fast because everyone will be doing this after a while. So if you do get to this early, it's probably going to be particularly insane. In terms of armor, you're probably going to want to go for astral plates and stuff like that, or like Val Regalias, or try and get some sort of like Crusader chest piece so that people can roll the exploding mod. Very, very cool though overall. Lots of options, lots of strategies to be had. We really need to understand how common these tier 2 and 3 seeds are because some of the effects are completely insane. I think I'm most excited about the Divination card one just because that sounds really fun. Figuring out how to craft jewels effectively is probably going to be a very big deal because then you can start leveraging all of these modifiers, which a lot of the time I'm sure a lot of people will be wasting. So the difference between making money in this league is probably going to be whether or not you can figure out how to use these crafting modifiers to make items which will actually sell. And I do think jewels are the way forward. So that's going to be all there is for this video, guys. Next video will be in the Harvest League. I'll probably have a very big update for you about how I'm going with it, what I'm doing, and what my plans are. So look forward to that, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Cheers.